I asked to have number 5 pulled, since I'll speak first, I guess. But I've got some concerns, not about the project, but about the timing. And a couple of things came to light, Mr. Manager, and I need you to address them, or I don't know whether we can do with them all here. It'd be better to pull it and do it some other time. But when the funding for the study came up, it identified all kinds of pots that they'd gone through and pulled money out of in the capital improvement program budget. Took from one pot here to pot there to pot there to come up. Well, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 pots of money to pull out of the capital improvement projects to cover this.
Right.
So one, what impact did that have on projects that were scheduled to be done that are not going to have funds at this point as a result of pulling out the $500,000? I think that's real important because we've got, and we'll have a little presentation a little later today about our wastewater and some stormwater stuff. But so I want to know what projects are being negatively impacted by that transfer of $500,000. And then I was not there, and I don't know whether you were. I don't think so. I think that's the day you had your. I don't know. Anyway, there was a stormwater group stakeholders meeting on the 17th. And that was, I think, the group that the council appointed, or maybe, and to talk about how we break out stormwater from our water rates.
Right.
And I don't know whether this, how many is this, the first meeting, 10th meeting, I don't know what meeting it was, but somewhere in the discussion, it came up that, and it was not discussed and disclosed to us last week at this meeting, but since then the question was asked with the taking of this $500,000 for this, that they're saying staff informed the group that you would be coming for almost a 5% rate increase to offset this loss of the $500,000 in the water rates for this year, which was news to me. I can tell you, I mean, I want to get your answer, but I'm absolutely not interested in increasing our water rates or our utility rates by 4.9% to cover this $500,000. So maybe you can't answer that today. There's more explanation that needs to be there. And that's why I'm saying it may be better just to delay this until we can get an explanation of where this is going, because we've already got certain plans, I think, built into utility rate increases over the next several years.
Right.
And then this is another 5% on top of that. I just, and we need to know, because if you're voting to approve this today, you're basically voting for a 4.9% rate increase when it comes time for the budget. Now, there's several of us that'll sit here on the council and vote for projects, but they won't vote for the money to fund them. So, if what I'm hearing is correct, then I really would like to have some time to get a full explanation. I don't know that we can do it. I don't know that I advised you that I was going to ask you this question, but this to me is something. And then you couple that. I have no idea. You've probably got a better idea, but I don't know how close you can be either. Probably a whole lot better than I am, but we still don't know the impact of what this coronavirus is going to have to do on our budget. And I was pretty comfortable up to till these spikes started and how long we were going to take to get recovered. So I'm getting a little nervous about it now. I was pretty easy going with what we'd heard based on our reserves and our initial reports on sales tax and this sort of thing. But I just think with the pandemic, you've got your hands full, and we've got a budget to plan, and you got we start that next month pretty quick, don't we?
Yeah, we're beginning now on working with the departments to develop the budget.
And I'm just not comfortable robbing Peter to pay Paul to go on 500,000 without knowing what projects are negatively impacted that we're sitting there in the waitings and the wings, and then with the potential of a 5% rate increase. I can't go for that. I mean, if you want to address it today, that's fine. I would prefer so we could have with the council present, all together, and then if there's public comment on this, because this is a big deal. I mean, nobody's against this project, but I think the timing with our finances and then this unknown about the tax rate, I'm certainly, I can't support that.
Yeah. Well, that's a possible option, Mayor, to delay it if you wanted to a little bit. There are several projects balances that we're using to get this 509,000. It's $500,000 for the study. So there probably won't be a negative impact on a project that's underway, but there's a lot of unknown in revenues. So there could be in the coming couple of weeks as we develop the budget, it could be that we could use $500,000 to improve an area that revenues are coming in short within the same area of stormwater or wastewater, or even the money ultimately comes from the water bill, the water customers. So there is a lot unknown from even when we issued the RFQ a couple of months ago. Right, the economy is obviously worldwide taking a turn for the worse. So if we spend this money today, then it just gives us less flexibility as we finish the budget over the next couple of weeks. Richard is here. I did not make that meeting we're talking about this 5% increase, and so I can't speak to that right now. Maybe Richard can a little bit. And but we can support the potential motion to take a little bit more time to get more information to the council. It's up to the full council on that. There is a lot of uncertainty. I can agree with that for sure in our financial situation. This spike that we're having, I don't know how it's going to impact us here locally, and we don't know how long it's going to be. So a conservative or fiscally prudent thing would be to hold on for a little bit. Once we approve it, it's 509,000, that $500,000. But Richard, I don't know, can you talk about the rate increase?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. So that was our third stakeholder meeting for stormwater, and it was where we're going over possible scenarios and rates to the stakeholder group. And the question was asked basically when we're looking at improvements where the type of services that we do today and the services that we want to do to become more efficient. And I'll use an example, which was the question was asked over, was street sweeping. And so today we have a minimal contract to go and do street sweeping. And then we looked at it and said, okay, to do services along our arterials 4 times a year, and our residentials twice a year, and downtown 363 days a year, the additional cost to that was about $500,000. And again, these were scenarios that were put to the stakeholder group over every service levels that we provide. And one of the stakeholders said, well, there is an item that's coming up before council that has to do with this item here. If we just didn't do that item, then you could pay for the street sweeping program. That was the question that was asked that day in that process. So these improvements to the program aren't still set in stone. These are just examples to give them to say, we want them to give us feedback on those type of improvements to services that we move along. But it was a comparison of that additional cost for street sweeping, and if you didn't do this project, you could pay for that. That was the question, sir.
Okay, and the emphasis on the street sweeping, I think, has been made pretty strong by the manager. That helps us in our stormwater EPA requirements and all that sort of stuff, and that's why you were moving forward in that theory, because we hadn't done street sweeping in years on any major scale. And I think TxDOT, I see a truck. Maybe they're more than I see them, but I don't see them. I see them out on crosstown every once in a while or on Padre Island Drive, but not on a regularly frequent basis. Of course, I'm not out usually late at night when they're out there doing their work, but I do see them every once in a while, but not on a frequent basis. I don't think I've seen them. except for when there's construction, you got that big old brush kicking up, cloud of dust, picking up all the loose rock on a street project. I don't know that I've seen city street sweepers.
We don't, no. That's one of the things Richard's here to help us change. We need to, a lot of Texas cities sweep residential streets where you and I live 4 times a year, and major streets like arterials, collectors, downtown corridors. Like a downtown corridor, many cities do them once a night. I don't know if we even do ours.
So they're done in a small area,
Yeah.
but we're looking at 363 days a year if we were going to get
If you sweep my street, you'd probably get up, pick up enough rocks to redo it.
You're correct. You're correct, sir. And all that debris gets into the storm water system and then ultimately gets to the bay. And so you're correct, sir. It will help us with our permitting and EPA process. So street sweeping is an important part of the program. So TxDOT does sweep the highways on a quarterly basis.
Okay. All right, that's all my comments. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've got some other lights up, but I'd really like to have some time to discuss this and see what the fiscal impact is, but we'll see what...
Mayor, I have a question.
Excuse me? Well,
I have a question, Mayor.
Out there in the hinterland, since I got the lights here, I don't want to ignore y'all, so I'll let y'all go first. Who's out there?
This is Councilman Roy.
Yes, sir.
So my first question is, I want to go back to your question. Is there a correlation? So I would like an answer between if we spend $500,000, does that increase the fees by 5%? Can somebody just give me a yes or no, explain that?
It won't. No, won't it? It will not increase the fee by 5%. The money is.
Okay, so we can dispel that rumor that the mayor was talking about in terms of that he heard that he doesn't want the ratepayers to have a 5% increase. So giving $500,000 with this project, phase 1 that we agreed upon, it's not going to have an effect in terms of increasing the rate to 5%. Is that correct?
Not directly.
Okay, so my other question is this. You know, as a city, we talked about this a couple council members meetings ago, that we had to get back to business as usual. On today's agenda, we have a $600,000 contract, not to exceed $713,000 on Cole Park Pier. If we're worried about money and we're worried about going forward and doing things that are going to hinder this city, let's worry about that too. And then let's go a little bit further than that. And let's take a look at what we're talking about in terms of the monies that we're going to spend in District 2 on that capital project there too. Should we be concerned and maybe not do anything right now and table all of these items? Mayor?
I think we ought to be concerned about our budget. I don't have any doubt about that. I don't know whether the pier, I think that pier is an insurance. That pier is an insurance, I think a lot of it is. There's some FEMA money.
There'll be some grant dollars, right?
Yeah. So but, you know, so I'm not sure where all the different buckets of money are coming from the pier, but I think that's some FEMA money and maybe some insurance. So, and
same thing with the
but
North
in principle, to your question, yes, I think we ought to be looking at everything right now based on the economy and what we're seeing. There's no question about that. And you as a banker, I think you'd be, if I was a businessman with as potential shortfalls as I was having, I believe if I owed you money, you'd be wanting me to make sure I didn't go bite off another big bite of the apple.
And I agree, but I also think that the other thing that we have to look at is this phase 1 in terms of time. If we put off this $500,000, which is not going to cost a 5% increase, and we table this and we go down the road and we do this later, it costs us more. I mean, it's almost the same thing as if you take a look at the water garden. Early on, we could have fixed the water gardens for pennies on the dollar, and we kicked the can down the road, and now it would cost us millions. And, you know, we still haven't addressed the water gardens from 2 years ago. So, you know what, maybe I'm willing not to spend the $3 or $4 million that it was going to take to put the Cadillac version of the water gardens and have, 600 different colors of lights and only go with 50 colors of light to save the city some money, but to continue to work forward toward looking at what we promised the people that were part of North Beach, that we would take this thing to phase one. Because originally, remember, that we had a lot of discussion in terms of being at $42 million and putting the city on the hook for $42 million, and we got away from that. We did the smart thing, and we looked at phases. So I just want to know, I want to go on the record saying I'm opposed at this point, because based on your conversation at the opening, that it doesn't cost it's not going to be a 5% increase. It's not going to be anywhere near that to spend that $500,000. And, to conject that type of fear, I think I'm just having a hard time with it.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, Greg Smith.
Well, all right, I got two lights on here, but let's take. All right, Mr. Smith.
Okay, a question to city staff on that cost of stormwater. How do the citizens pay for that? How will you charge? What funds are stormwater improvement?
Right now, today, that comes out of the water bill.
Okay, so anything we spend on it, whether it's 0.5% or it will be, it's recovered through the water bill.
Yes.
Okay. I guess all of the funding for this is coming out of our stormwater. I've always been on record saying I look at the canal as an economic development project, not a stormwater project. We've got an HDR study that we've actually done some of the things. This 2018, it was $5 million to improve drainage on North Beach, and an important part of that was clean the pipes out, which we've done, and then we're seeing the results of that. I just hope that this doesn't open the floodgates. Since on this we're funding 100% from stormwater there, that 40, 50, whatever the cost is, we're not looking to fund it all from stormwater, because that then would be onerous on the rates. So that's my concern, that we ought to be looking at some different sources, whether it's TERS, whether it's bonds, or we paid the $40,000 for the urban study out of just general revenue. That's a more appropriate place for this economic development project in our stressed stormwater fund. And I think all of we district council members, we got stormwater needs throughout this city on it. I definitely know there are some in four with it: Williams Ditch, Glen Oak, Ramfield, etc. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, anyone else out in the cloud? All right, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. As I understand, these are from capital. The funding that we're using is from other capital projects where we had a balance left over from 2013, 2015 projects. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Councilman.
Okay, so this isn't impacting any operating budgets that we currently have or in the future. I'll put that out so it doesn't affect that. And as I understand, this stormwater committee was formed in response to the mayor's request to separate the stormwater expenses from the water bill. Is that correct?
The full council, yes, asked for that last
okay.
budget last year.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Full council.
Yes.
But it was initiated by the mayor. Is that correct?
It was initiated by several council members.
I think it was initiated by the public, saying they were tired of paying stormwater based on the water rates, because stormwater has absolutely nothing to do with the amount of water you consume.
No, I'm just identifying.
The public's pushed to get it separated, and they've tried it 3 or 4 different times, and they've got it up to the altar, but nobody's got it married before, because the ultimate, and I think what you're finding this time is, and when you hired a consultant to go back and plug the numbers in, if you divide it out the way they're talking about doing it, as complicated as you can do, I won't go into all that, but it's been I just felt like it was time to do it, and I think the council thought it was too, and I thought I had a simple solution, but obviously when you get into bureaucracy, anything simple could be made complex, and that seems to be the direction they're going. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
No,
I got a problem with water rates paying for stormwater because it has nothing to do with the consumption.
Yeah, and no disagreement there, Mayor. I think there's an argument to say that you need to separate stormwater from the water bill. If not, to streamline it for our water rate payers that pay our outside the city limits and make that process a lot easier. Don't have an issue with that at all. That being said, I think we have identified this funding previously during previous council meetings to address this situation specifically. I understand the situation is different and we don't know where our budget's going to look like, but this is something separate. This is a capital budget.
Well, a capital budget means it's money for projects, and you've got projects that are stacked up, waiting to happen, waiting for the funding. So it does impact it. If you take $500,000 away, that delays a decision on when you're going to do another project. I mean, I understand you make your priority choices. I mean, if you've had something waiting in the wings for a long time waiting and you're trying to collect money and you're about there and then all of a sudden you pull the $500,000 out of it, you go tell Ms. Smith out in your district, well, Ms. Smith, we can't do it this time because we just took the $500 that we accumulated to help you. We want to go over here and do a study. Or we can raise the rate. We can raise the rates and we can do the study, but you'll pay a little more on your water bill so we can get your project done. I mean, it's one of those priority kind of decisions. What I'm thinking of. And
you're correct. And we have something coming up that specifically on desal, that is a $222 million project that's coming out of our water rates that would put increases in the water bill. So maybe that's one of those items that we need to push off or look at ulterior methods in order not to increase the water rates. So I understand we could make this argument for several different projects. And we sit here all day long. We have an item on this one, a briefing on the EPA consent agreement, that we're going to pay $1 million fine, over $1 million fine, and I can get you the exact amount. A penalty of $1.136 million that's going to have to come out of our water bill because of things that we didn't do in the past, such as not do preventative maintenance, which we didn't do on North Beach. So looking at this from a perspective of whether or not we should be doing something now or later is the same argument we can make for just about everything we do in this, every project that comes up. I think we've already decided as a council to move forward on this, and I think we should continue. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Garza?
First off, I'm in favor of spending the $500,000. Again, I'm worried about the finances of the city, what choices we're going to have to make going forward once we figure out the total effects of the COVID-19. Two positives. Although I don't have an appetite for an additional study, which I really don't, I think there's some good things that can come out of this. We have a new public works director that has solved some issues or taken problems that we've had and found some very, common sense solutions to some of the problems we had. He talked about traffic. We've had traffic on Padre Island since I was a kid, and he found a couple of ways to actually try to mitigate some of the problems we have with it. He's taken a really fresh approach in determining how we're going to best utilize some of the funding we have related to our streets, things that they told us when I first got on the council we couldn't do, that we were getting way too far in the weeds and trying to tell the professionals how we should address our street problems. Again, and we brought Richard in, and he's coming across and solving and fixing a lot of streets that had not been addressed previously in all the time that I was here. So again, I think right here, us having a feasibility study gives us the opportunity to be able to look. We had dollars already in our capital budgets to fix some issues in North Beach, including stormwater and wastewater and some of the infrastructure issues we have out there. And again, I think that looking at some of the issues that we had, that previous administration said, we have no issues out there, there's no problems, we've already fixed everything. But of course, the proof's in the pudding. The flooding issues that we had out there, we still had to this day. And so again, I think having an engineer come in and look at a feasibility study related to a canal, whether that'll improve the issues out there, and how some of the infrastructure we have out there is going to be able to function or have to be replaced, or have to be improved, or what we've got to do out there, I think is good, being done with the oversight of a fresh set of eyes that we currently have. Secondly, I think that if we're going to go out, and again, we don't want to spend the $41 million or $75 million or whatever that was originally proposed. If we're going to go out there and we're going to look for ways to apply for grants and stuff, we might be able to piggyback and ask for this engineering study, engineering work to be able to give us the best chance of being able to submit something that might be able to give us some grant funding to fix some of the problems, so that it's not on the back of the ratepayer or the taxpayer going forward. So I don't know where all this is going to end, but by the time it happens, I'm going to be off the council, but I am going to support this $500,000. And again, we'll look at all the choices that we have to make. I think desal, the Park Road 22 bridge on the island, all the things that are being asked for us to do in the community, from a community standpoint, I think the $500,000 to be able to go forward and see what we're going to wind up having to do in North Beach, I think is critical. And we do have dollars set aside for capital projects on North Beach that we may not need to spend or have to spend, or may have to spend in a different way. I think this particular exercise is going to benefit us. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question, Mayor.
Okay.
Richard, where's Richard? Oh,
He's there.
yeah. Okay, I just want to confirm. So, this $508,000 expenditure is not going to cause an increase to the ratepayer by using these particular dollars, correct?
That is correct, ma'am. The question that was asked at the stakeholder meeting was about improvements that we're putting on the table for future stormwater program. And if those were to go forward, there would be an increase in that. But again, that is a decision that will be brought to council for review on August the 11th over the entire program and what we've actually done with stakeholders during that time frame.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Mayor, I have one additional question.
Okay.
Somebody refreshed my memory. A couple of weeks ago, City Manager, you came forward, and that's when you were presenting the budget, and we talked about, unfortunately, we either under-budgeted, or there was a assistant city manager that under-budgeted or did something related to forecasting that was incorrect, and it was going to end up costing us more. Can you refresh my memory on that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Councilman, that was in our wastewater operation, and I don't have the exact figure here. I think it was about 8 million or so. The assumptions were off by about that much, 8 to 10 million. And in the wastewater fund, since that meeting, I have met with the consultant that helps us with the modeling, and they have actually done a good job in the modeling. And so, because I did say there may be some issues with the modeling, but since that time, I've learned, working directly with the company reps here locally and the gentleman that runs the numbers, that the model was good. It was the assumptions that we put into the model that caused some issue, and so that's the issue. The recovery of the way we're going to fix the issue is reduce spending and push off some of the capital projects that were scheduled to be done until October, or until this new budget year coming up. So that's the...
Will there be any effect on that $8 million in terms of any type of cost or increase?
A rate increase? No. No, there won't. We're reducing spending this fiscal year and pushing off by a few months some of the planned capital projects or minor capital projects in the system until October, and so there won't be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, so you're saying there's not going to be a rate increase recommended for the utilities for water?
Well, go ahead, Richard.
Associated with this $500,000, no, sir, there is not going to be a rate increase in that. What we're going to bring forward to you is separating the stormwater fee from the water fee and coming over and presenting to you what that new structure for impervious cover will be versus usage consumption of water, and what it would be residential versus commercial, and where we are today in that, and then where we would like to go with the program that will have some rate increase recommendations. But again, those are things for you to be able to review and decide which way we want to go with the stormwater fee.
Okay, anything else?
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion and a second.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Werth, you want to call the roll?
So for passage of ordinance number 5 on its second reading, Mayor McComb?
No.
Council members Barrera? Mr. Barrera?
I'm sorry, aye.
Okay, thank you. Garza?
Aye.
Guajardo?
Aye.
Hernandez?
Aye.
Hunter?
Aye.
Molina?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
And Smith?
No.
Okay, the ordinance passes.
All right. Item number